Welcome to the Metal Platter. It's been a while since we had the Metal Platter. I decided to change the Metal Platter a bit. Now this is the second episode of the Metal Platter, and count how many times I say the Metal Platter in this episode. So, holy shit, what an incredible week I've explored in the realms of death metal. This video is all about the death metal bands I've explored recently. The bands we are covering this week are Northa, Cryptopsy, Incantation, Mortal Decay, Carcass, Necrot, and Asphyx. That's the bands we're covering, so stay tuned for all the bands I will be covering this week. The Metal Platter, in case you don't know, is nothing like Discovery. I'm basically going to talk to you the bands I have discovered and talk about the albums I heard. And of course there are some negative and positive reviews on Metal Platter, and I don't shy away with my opinions. I'll tell you if I like it or not. And the first album I did check out was Northa and the album Till Death Unites Us. This album is a melodic death metal album, although it does feel slightly generic. They are a Finnish melodic death metal band. Some really nice guitar work throughout this album, although I feel that production is slightly weak, but just influences the guitars just a little bit, but his vocals are quite intense. They are an associate act to Children of Bodom, so they do sound a lot like Children of Bodom. Some of these songs are really good, some of these songs really grind your gears as well. There are some cheesy moments throughout this album, but also some melodic moments. There are some calmer moments, symphonic elements, and power metal elements throughout this album. Although it's basically a melodic death metal album, it still holds true to that strong punchy death metal sound that you want. Now, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy this album, but I just feel that this album just lacks structure. Especially the middle part of the album, I just feel like that this album does derail. It gets back on its rails by the end of the album. The vocals are pretty good, the guitars are quite intense, and this is the only album I checked out from Northa. And will I check another album by Northa again? Probably, I will. At the moment, I'm not going to explore Northa because I just feel that sound is quite repetitive. Some really nice guitar solos as well throughout this album. They've been definitely inspired by Children of Bodom, especially the guitar work. The vocals I feel are better than the Children of Bodom vocalists. So if you like Children of Bodom, you're gonna probably love Northa. But for Till Death Unites Us, we'll probably give this a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, so that was the only album I checked out from Northa. Now the next band we're checking out is Cryptopsy, a technical brutal death. So the first album I checked out from this band was Blasphemy Made Flesh. This album really took me by surprise. It's very brutal, very technical, and I do love the slammy elements throughout this album. His vocals are absolutely fantastic, but yet dynamic, and I love the punchy elements throughout this album. Some absolutely amazing songs like Defenestration is an absolutely fantastic song, along with Abogor. This album really flows. It flows like water, and the songs really bleed into each other. What I absolutely love is the overall drumming. The tone of the snare is absolutely fantastic, and I really did enjoy this album. It's brutal, it's heavy, and his vocals are so damn fucking dynamic. They really are. Not to mention his screams throughout this album really reminds of bands such as Anal Nathrak. Although this album is quite heavy, there are some negatives on this album as well. I believe this is their first album. Yeah, the production isn't that great. It's not that great. It's very raw in tone. I do really love the guitar riffs throughout this album. Memories of Blood is absolutely fantastic song, along with the last song, Pathological Frolic. Really good moments on this album. I just love how intense this album is. My buddy and I heard this album for the first time and we said, wow, this is a pretty good fucking album by this band. Overall, I love the quick blast beats, quick transitions throughout this album as well. Doesn't let up until you get to the fucking end. So for Cryptopsy, Blasphemy Made Flesh, I will give this an 8.5 out of 10. Fantastic, brutal technical death metal album. So also checked out another Cryptopsy album. It's a self-titled album which was released in 2012. Now I believe their previous album was sort of a deathcore album. A lot of fans weren't very happy about that album, but then Cryptopsy decided to really change things up and become that technical death metal that Cryptopsy have always been. Really technical, chaotic, crazy shit, just like Nile. It's technical, it's absolutely insane, but I tell you what, some of these songs are brutal as anything. His vocals are so damn demonic, so damn guttural, but yet he also gets to that really high scream that you love from this band. Really enjoy 2 Pound Torch, and Omnius is a really good song along with Cleansing the Hosts. Overall, it's a pretty quick album running about 35 minutes, but just brutal guitar work and the brutal drumming as well. This is an intense fucking album. Like, if you don't like technical death metal, if you don't like anything that's all crazy and bibbidi boobidi, you're probably not gonna like this. There are some really cool moments. Solos are really good as well, punchy drums, and overall, it's just one hell of a ride. But for Cryptopsy and the album Cryptopsy, I just feel like, yeah, it's not as good as Blasphemy Made Flesh. It's not as good as a debut album. Fuck that. Cryptopsy has made me want to explore more of this fucking band. Holy shit. One of the really good album Cryptopsy was, but Blasphemy Made Flesh was a hell of a lot better in my opinion, just because of how intense that album was. Production, on the other hand, with Cryptopsy is a lot better, you could say, but nothing will beat Blasphemy Made Flesh. That was my first Cryptopsy album, but this self-titled album is pretty fucking good as well. But Cryptopsy, self-titled, I'll probably give this a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, so next up is Mortal Decay and the album Forensics. Now, I decided to check out this album just because there's been a bit of talk around Mortal Decay. This band is very impressive in my opinion. There are some awesome elements throughout this album, but I just feel that the vocals are definitely an acquired taste. The vocals at times sound like a frog. They do, that's what he fucking sounds like throughout this album. But I gotta admit, Monkey Cage is one of my favorite songs off the album, along with Beyond Forensic Knowledge. The amazing into the instrumental section you're getting throughout some of these songs. The crazy transitions as well. Dare I say this is a proggy album, running about 46 minutes with 9 songs. It's a really interesting death metal album in my opinion. I would say it's probably brutal death metal, very similar to bands such as Cryptopsy, maybe not, and even Suffocation, although I feel like Mortal Decay is in a different sort of lane here, just because that Mortal Decay is very different because it's onto that really brutal side. But on the other hand, the lyrics are fucking disturbing, they really are. And Razor Slice Decor is one of a really disturbing song, Brutalized and Defiled, talking about really disturbing lyrics like fucking a 9-year-old child, killing her and shit. Really brutal lyrics, but goddamn, the music is actually pretty good. Production is okay. What can I say about Mortal Decay is that their first album that I checked out, I was actually pretty surprised. Of course, it's not as good as the other albums I have mentioned, in my opinion, just because I can't get into this brutal death metal that a lot of people have been talking about. But goddamn it, I can really appreciate the musicianship. I just can't get into the fucking vocals. He sounds like a fucking frog at times, like blah, 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 blah. He actually fucking sounds like a grudge sometimes. But holy shit, good album by this band. Really good album. Have to check out more Mortal Decay. For Mortal Decay Forensics, I'll probably give this a 6 out of 10. So the next band is Incantation. Incantation definitely become one of my favorite death metal bands just because I absolutely love their style of play. I love how doomy they get as well, very similar to bands such as Autopsy. The 2 albums I've explored this month have been the album Blasphemy and also the absolute famous album Onward to Golgotha. So let's talk about Blasphemy first. Let's get this straight. This album is a very disappointing album by Incantation. This is the weakest album so far I've heard by Incantation. Now I'm going to absolutely shit on this album, so be prepared. This album is not very good. It isn't. The production is absolutely terrible. It really is. The guitar sounds so damn fucking thin. The drums sound terrible. His vocals are probably the main survivor of this album just because it's so damn fucking irritating. This album really is. And not to mention these cunts put in a fucking 23-minute ambient fucking track at the end of the album. Are you fucking serious? Are you fucking serious? Blasphemy is one of the worst Incantation albums I've ever fucking heard. Some good songs like Once Holy Throne, probably the best song off the fucking album, along with Sacrilegious as well. But the rest of the songs are all fucking fillers, and this album is absolute fucking trash. And the fucking production is not very good. It's very thin. It's overall a fucking mess. And holy shit, I fucking hate this album by Incantation. And you know what? This album doesn't have any glorious moments such as Profane Nexus or even Sect of Vile Divinities, those albums I checked out as well. Holy shit, this is a really bad album by Incantation. I fucking hated it. Of course, there are some interesting moments throughout this album, and there are some doomy elements, there are strong death metal elements, but the production just lets this whole fucking album down. If they had better production, it would have been a okay album, but even the songwriting is lackluster as well. Fucking 4 out of 10 this album gets. Yeah, stay away from it. Stay the fuck away from it. So next album I checked out from Incantation was a whole lot better, that's for sure. Onward to Golgotha. This is one of the most heaviest albums I've heard. One of the heaviest and most brutal albums I've heard by this band. It's absolutely fantastic. This album was released back in 1992, and holy shit, I can see the praise. Check out Onward to Golgotha, and holy shit, I was so damn impressed. This album is a masterpiece. It's a fucking masterpiece by this band, and I absolutely love it. Golgotha is amazing. The gritty guitar riffs are absolutely fantastic. The drumming is really good, and overall production is one of the best producing Incantation albums I've heard. All these songs are absolute killers, and all this album has no fillers. That's it. Some absolutely amazing songs like Deliverance of Horrific Prophecies, Entrapment of Evil. I love the gritty tones on this album. There are some really fast moments, and there's some really slow, doomy moments as well. Incantation do it so well, mixing elements of doom and death metal. Holy shit, what a fantastic album by this band. It is a hell of a lot better than that piece of shit Blasphemy, that's for sure. So for Incantation, Onward to Golgotha, a 10 out of 10. Fucking brilliant album by this band. When I finish the discography, possibly be my favorite album by them. Absolutely fucking loved it. I loved it. I just love how heavy, I just love how gritty this album is. These vocals, so cavernous and guttural, and holy shit, what an incredible album Onward to Golgotha is. Oh. Okay, so next up is Necrot. So after hearing the latest album Mortal, I had to check out Blood Offerings, and this was their first album, and wow. Okay, so I'm really impressed. Now I just feel that Necrot, Blood Offerings is a little bit better than Mortal. That's an unpopular opinion, but Necrot is an absolute brilliant death metal band to be reckoned with, especially in this modern age. Really enjoyed this album. I love how Necrot paces their albums. They do, and they pace their albums so well. The production is absolutely fantastic. Love his vocals. His vocals are really good. The gritty guitar work as well throughout this album, and it's not technical. It's not technical like Skeletal Domain. It's just death metal. It's just this death metal that you come to really love. To me, it's simple death metal, but it's simple death metal done right. I feel like Blood Offerings has sort of a blackened tinge on this album, hints towards the blackened death metal genre, but wow, it's an absolutely incredible album. I just feel that Blood Offerings is slightly better than Mortal. Even Mortal was an absolutely fantastic album as well. Blood Offerings was a really good album. Definitely Necrot is a band to be reckoned with, that's for sure. Such an enjoyable album. Necrot Blood Offerings, probably give this a 9 out of 10. Okay, so the next band I checked out was Carcass, one of the biggest melodic death metal bands out there. Never heard of any of this stuff, and I decided to check 2 albums by them, and this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but there is this, so let's get on with it. I'll tell you why. The first album I checked out was Necrotism, which was released in 1991, and I didn't enjoy this album. I thought this album was quite plain. I thought this album was quite boring. Now, I hear a lot of fans are saying this is very high regarded as one of the best albums. I just don't see it. I don't see it. And I just feel that the production isn't really good, and even the instrumentals aren't that great as well. Like, there are some really nice refuges throughout some of these songs. Probably my favorite song is Corporate Jigsaw Quandary, but that's about it. Like, this album is quite boring. It really is. Now, the only thing I like on this album is his vocals. His vocals are very good. His vocals sound very black metal on this album. And then I realized, hey, this is sort of death metal, I suppose, incorporate elements of grind. You could say there are some elements of grindcore on this album. I didn't really enjoy it. Did not enjoy this album one bit. Probably give this a 5 out of 10. Didn't enjoy it. I thought this album was boring, uninspiring as well. It was just a lackluster affair. That's all I can say about this album. This album is shit. Okay, so next up is Carcass, Heartwork. Now, a lot of people have been saying this album is a masterpiece. It's a fucking masterpiece. Remember, this is my opinion, and it's subjective, of course, my opinion. Well, no, fuck it. This album is okay. It's okay. Everyone's saying it's a fucking masterpiece. I believe Carcass was a pioneer of melodic death metal. I understand, and this is probably the first melodic death metal album or something. Man, I just couldn't get into the album. The best song of the album is Heartwork. It really is. But of course, you got some instrumentals which are pretty good. They are pretty good, and the vocals are absolutely intense. But I just feel I've heard way better melodic death metal albums. Yeah, so I don't know. I didn't really gravitate towards this album. I thought it was just an average album. Like, I just feel like this album is fucking overrated as fuck. I'm probably gonna cop a little bit of hate on this opinion, but you know what, who cares? It's all about the fun. Like, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate this album. I actually enjoyed some of it. But yeah, Heartwork is the best song. The self-titled track is the best song. The rest of the album is just filler. Nice guitar solos, really nice drumming as well, but I'm gonna say it just sounds generic. This album sounds generic, and there's just really not much substance to this album. That's why Carcass Heartwork is probably getting a 6 out of 10. It's just okay. Okay, so I've probably pissed so many people off. So the next band I checked out was a very interesting band. I absolutely fucking love this band now. Become one of my favorite death metal bands of all time just in the split 2 weeks. It's Asphyx. I checked out the first album was The Rack. This was a debut album. Holy shit, what an incredible album this is. Incorporate elements of death doom on this album. It's quite doomy, it's quite slow, but it's also quite death metal as well. It's very fast paced. Love the song Vermin. It's so damn intense, along with Diabolical Existence, which has this doomy sort of feel. The guitar riffs are absolutely amazing. Really love the chord progression. I just love the overall elements of surprise throughout this album. Some really catchy moments as well, like Wasteland of Terror, along with even Ode to Nameless, which is an amazing instrumental. Love the instrumental on Ode to Nameless. And then you got Pages in Blood, which is absolutely fantastic as well. His vocals, how can I describe his vocals? I know Asphyx has changed a few vocalists throughout the discography, but holy shit, his vocals on this album sound very similar to Chuck's vocals from Death. Love. This is like a slow death, and I just absolutely love this album. I really do, and I just really love the end, the conclusion, which is The Rack, which is basically a big crescendo that just builds up to this massive conclusion, which just makes this one of the best death metal albums of all fucking time. Hell of a lot better than fucking Carcass Heartwork, that's for sure. The Rack is absolutely amazing. I don't see anyone talk about Asphyx. Love the overall instrumentals, they're so damn talented. His vocals are absolutely fantastic. Like I said, sound very similar to Chuck, but wow, absolutely incredible album. The Rack is a very underrated album. No one ever talks about this album, and why not? The Rack is like a 10 out of 10. Yeah, so it's a 10 out of 10. So the next album I checked out was Embrace the Death. Holy shit, this album is quite doomy, it's quite slimy, and at times it's quite sludgy. Like, Asphyx really changes their sound throughout this album. The production is not very good, but it creates that raw sound, that raw atmospheric sound that you come to love. Really enjoy the song Embrace the Death, along with the Sick and Dwell. There are some awesome death doom elements on this album, even dare I say incorporating funeral doom on this album as well. But whoa, some fantastic songs on this album. I love his vocals as well. His vocals are intense. The production, like I said, isn't that great, but it's just a really awesome album. Although it's not as good as The Rack, it's still a really cool album. I just love the overall style of this album. So damn different to the album God Cries, which is another amazing album. But of course we're running out of time. But Embrace the Death is another gem by Asphyx, 8.5 out of 10. And finally, the last album I checked from Asphyx is Deathhammer. This is probably one of the most fun and enjoyable albums by this band. I could say this is an introduction album to Asphyx because it's so damn fun. Really love this album, love his vocals. Deathhammer! It's so damn fun. It really reminds you of Bolt Thrower, especially the fucking riffs on this album. Deathhammer, Minefield, so much enjoyable songs. The Flood is amazing. So really enjoyable songs. Some really hard-hitting songs as well. Of course I incorporate elements of that Doom, but not as much on this album. But whoa, it's just in your face death metal, and I absolutely love it. It's fun fucking death metal. Reminds you of bands such as Bolt Thrower. Bolt Thrower is an amazing band, especially on this album. Just like Deathhammer, it's very sing-alongable, it's very fun. The self-titled track is absolutely amazing, it really is. The production is really good as well, and overall it's just a fun fucking time to bang your fucking head. So for Deathhammer, I'd give this a 9 out of 10. Another fantastic album by Asphyx. So guys, that's where I leave you for the Metal Platter. Join me in a fortnight where I will give you some more bands that I have discovered. Hope you did enjoy it. Comment below if you enjoyed the Metal Platter. Do you agree or disagree with my opinion? A lot of people would disagree with that Carcass opinion, that's for sure. Yeah, so keep discussion in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one.